My name is Emily Carter. I'm 41 years old and have been a university lecturer in Seattle for over a decade. On the outside, I had what many would call a stable life. A quiet home just off the lake, a rewarding career in education, and a 17-year marriage to Mark Carter, an accomplished senior partner at a well-known law firm downtown. We had history routines, matching coffee mugs, and anniversary photo albums carefully labeled by year. To friends and family, we were that couple. You know the type. Always smiling at gatherings, exchanging glances during conversations, finishing each other's stories. We traveled. We hosted game nights. We even volunteered at the local food bank. From the outside, our life looked like a polished portrait of partnership. But reality rarely matches the picture frame. Over the past few years, things had begun to feel different. At first, it was subtle. Mark worked later, talked less. He blamed deadlines. Then came the new cologne, the sudden gym interest, the crisp shirts on a random Tuesday. I noticed. I always did. But noticing is different from admitting. So, I told myself what most people do in long relationships: it's just a phase. Life gets busy. People drift. Until one evening, a tiny detail shattered everything I thought I knew. Mark was in the shower, humming some classic rock tune. I was folding laundry on the edge of the bed when his phone lit up. A soft chime, one message. Reservation confirmed. Table for two. Lumiere. Friday, 7:30 p.m. window seat. She'll love it. Hey, Lumiere. He and I had dreamed of going there once for our 10th anniversary. It was expensive, elegant, and nearly impossible to book, but he led that year, citing work obligations. Now, a table was set for someone else. That moment wasn't just about dinner. It was the crack that revealed the hollow space underneath years of pretending. And I suddenly knew I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overthinking. I was right. I just hadn't wanted to be. I hadn't meant to unlock his phone. I swear I didn't. But my fingers moved before my mind caught up. Guided by something deeper than suspicion, instinct sharpened by months of quiet pain. The passcode was still our wedding date. 4 digits. Simple, naive. Just like the belief that trust alone could hold two people together. Inside, the truth waited. And it didn't wait politely. There she was. Lisa Morgan, blonde, mid-30s, communications manager at Mark's firm. Her name appeared in message after message, text bubbles layered with emojis, pet names, stolen moments. It wasn't just infidelity. It was intimacy. Laughing about inside jokes, discussing what color dress she should wear to his meetings, sharing photos from a work trip to Napa that I thought had been canceled due to budget cuts. They had a whole world together. One image stopped me cold: Lisa curled up beside Mark on a hotel bed. Both of them smiling like teenagers. I hadn't seen Mark smile like that in years. The worst part, I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just hollow. Like the part of me that once felt disappointment had burned out completely. Then the rage came. Quiet, pulsing rage. Have you seen my gray tie? Mark called from the bathroom, oblivious. Second drawer, I replied. My voice was flat. My hands trembled, but my words didn't. That night, I lay next to him without touching, without speaking. His breathing was steady, peaceful, even. Mine was measured, every inhale counting down to something I hadn't yet planned. I didn't sleep. I stared into the dark ceiling, trying to remember every time I'd blamed myself for our growing distance. Every time I said, he's just tired or it's just tired. But now I knew better. And once you know, you can't unknow. The next morning, I kissed him goodbye like usual. He was off to meet a client. Japanese, he claimed. Important. Meanwhile, I made a call to the university. I requested a short leave, not to grieve, but to prepare, because I had spent 17 years being the calm, understanding wife. But now it was time to be something else entirely. Not the victim, not the forgiver. Something Mark had never seen before. Someone who wasn't afraid to shatter the illusion. After Mark left, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring into a mug of coffee that had gone cold. The house was silent, except for the ticking of the wall clock, each second a reminder that time had run out on the life I thought I had. Grief didn't hit me the way I expected. No sob, no outbursts, just clarity. Cold, terrifying clarity. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg a man to love me again. I had done enough of that in silence. Instead, opened his laptop. Mark had always been obsessive with scheduling. His email calendar was meticulous, color-coded, time-stamped, and notated like a legal brief. And there it was. Friday, 7:30 p.m. Lumiere window seat. Wine pre-selected. So precise, so predictable. Lisa's full name was in the meeting notes. Lisa Morgan. I searched her in the firm's online directory. Internal communications. A few minutes of light stalking led me to her social media private, but not her husband's. Daniel Green, executive architect, tall, athletic build, friendly eyes. His LinkedIn listed him as a project lead for a major firm in Seattle, and most importantly, married. I had never met Daniel, but I knew what he deserved to know. Of course, I couldn't just message him with screenshots and accusations. That would be dismissed as jealousy or rage. No, I needed something believable, subtle, strategic, a setup that felt natural, professional, undeniable. That's when it clicked. As a university lecturer, I often invited professionals for guest speaker sessions. I drafted the email carefully concise, respectful, seemingly random. Dear Mr. Green, my name is Emily Carter, and I currently teach in the Urban Planning Department at Washington Metro University. We're hosting a guest series on design innovation and came across your recent project in the Fremont Riverfront District. We'd love to invite you for an informal dinner meeting to discuss your insights further. I've reserved a table for Friday evening, 7:30 p.m. at Lumiere, downtown Seattle. Looking forward to the possibility of working together. I read it over 3 times before hitting send. He replied within 2 hours. Thank you for the kind invitation. Friday at 7:30 works perfectly. I look forward to it. It was done. Next, I called Lumiere. Hi, I said with my calmest voice. I already have a reservation under Emily Carter, but if possible, I'd love a table close to one booked under the names Mark Carter and Lisa Morgan. We're exploring potential collaboration and would like to be nearby. The hostess didn't hesitate. Of course, Mom, I'll see you accordingly. I smiled for the first time in days. Not because I felt joy, but because I had a plan and it was working. I didn't want revenge in the way people imagine it. Dramatic scenes, tears shouting across candle-lit tables. I wanted the kind that left no room for denial. The kind that unfolded slowly like a curtain revealing the truth center stage. Mark thought he was orchestrating a perfect evening. What he didn't know is that I had rewritten the script. And on Friday night, the performance would begin. Friday came faster than I expected. I had rehearsed every scenario in my head, but nothing could truly prepare me for what was about to happen. I arrived at Lumiere 20 minutes early. The restaurant was just as I remembered from the photos, elegant, dimly lit, polished to perfection, a place meant for celebration, for love, for secrets whispered over wine. The hostess greeted me with a soft smile and led me to a table near the window right next to the reservation under Mark Carter. The view was stunning, but I wasn't there for that. I wore a teal silk dress. It was the one Mark had once called too loud for formal occasions. My hair was tied up in a soft bun, makeup understated but precise. The champagne-colored heels had never touched pavement before tonight. I didn't dress to impress. I dressed for clarity, for power, for presence. As I sat, I ordered a martini, something simple to steady my nerves. Every breath I took was measured. My eyes never left the entrance. At 7:29, he arrived. Emily Carter. I turned and stood. Daniel Green was exactly as I had imagined, tall, clean-cut, wearing a navy shirt that brought out the green in his eyes. He smiled politely and extended his hand. I shook it, calm but firm. Thank you for coming, I said, gesturing to the seat across from me. The pleasure's mine, he replied. I've heard good things about Lumiere. We started with small talk, his firm's work in riverfront architecture, my classes on project management. I asked questions I barely processed, responding just enough to keep the flow going, but my eyes kept drifting toward the door. Then I saw them. Mark walked in first, wearing the gray blazer I had bought him last Christmas. Lisa followed, radiant in a fitted red dress, her hand lightly brushing his as they approached their table. The hostess led them to the table directly next to ours. They sat smiling like newlyweds. He poured the wine. She touched his arm. I kept my face neutral, turning slightly away. Daniel was still speaking, so I focused until I felt it. A shift in the air. I turned just enough to catch Mark's eyes meeting mine. He froze. The color drained from his face. His glass tilted dangerously before the waiter studied it. Lisa looked at him puzzled, then followed his gaze. Her mouth parted and shot. Before either of them could move, I leaned toward Daniel and said softly, "Excuse me, I'll be right back." And I stood walking toward the restroom area. Not fast, not dramatic, just enough to give them time to squirm. And just enough to position myself perfectly for the next step. As I turned the corner, Lisa stepped out from the hallway. Her face was pale. "You're Emily, right?" she asked, her voice a whisper. I tilted my head. "And you're the one holding my husband's hand under the table while your own husband is sitting less than 10 feet away." She looked like she might collapse. "Please," she whispered. "Not here. Not like this." "Why not here?" I said calmly. "It's a beautiful restaurant. Candlelight, music, perfect ambience for the truth." She opened her mouth, but no words came. I looked past her. Mark stood nearby, trying to gather the courage to step forward. Too late. I turned slightly and called, "Daniel, could you come here for a second?" Daniel stood and walked over, confusion on his face. "What's going on?" he asked. I looked him straight in the eye. "This is my husband, Mark Carter," I said clearly. "And I believe you know Lisa, your wife." Daniel turned to her slowly. Her face said everything. Silence fell over our corner of the restaurant. No one dared to move. Mark tried to speak. Lisa covered her mouth, tears forming. But I didn't wait for apologies. I turned around and walked back to my table, letting the moment settle in behind me. Revenge wasn't loud. It was quiet. It was truth served ice-cold right between the wine glasses and the perfect lighting. I returned to the table and sat down slowly. Daniel didn't follow immediately. He stood there for a few moments, staring at Lisa, then at Mark. His face wasn't angry. It was blank. The kind of expression you wear when the ground has just disappeared beneath you. I signaled the waiter. "Please," I said quietly. "If there's a private room available, I'd like to move our table there and, if possible, combine it with the reservation for Mr. Mark Carter." He nodded, eyes flicking between us all, and walked off without a word. 5 minutes later, we were being led through a velvet curtain to a quiet, secluded room at the back. 1 table, 4 chairs. I sat first. Daniel took the seat beside me, still stunned. Mark and Lisa hesitated, then sat across from us. For a long time, no one spoke. The air was heavy with everything unsaid. Mark broke the silence. "Emily, I don't even know where to start." "Start 3 days ago," I said, pouring myself a glass of water when you got that dinner confirmation and left your phone on the nightstand. His mouth opened, then closed. Lisa looked down at her lap, face flushed, hands twisted together. "You don't need to explain," I continued. "I read every message, every photo, every moment you thought you'd hidden from me. Santa Barbara, Napa, the office late nights that weren't late at all." "I am sorry," Lisa whispered. I turned to Daniel. "This is my husband, and that's your wife. At least that's what the marriage licenses say." Daniel nodded slowly. His eyes never left Lisa. "What were you going to tell me?" he asked her, his voice low. "That it just happened? That it was a moment of weakness? You packed an overnight bag and flew to California. That takes more than a moment." Lisa was crying now. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Didn't mean to," Daniel repeated. "I spent 2 weeks readying your home office because you said you needed more inspiration. I bought you those lamps you saw online. You were holding someone else's hand while I was wiring your workspace." Mark reached across the table toward me. "Emily, please. I made a mistake. But we've built a life." "No," I said, my voice sharp but steady. "You built a fantasy, not a life. The life we had ended the moment you started looking at her the way you used to look at me." His hand dropped. I reached into my purse and placed a hotel key on the table. "I'm staying across the street tonight. You're welcome to go home if you still recognize it as yours. I'll return Monday morning. I suggest you're not there." Emily, don't do this. He pleaded. We can fix this. You don't fix a foundation that's already rotten, I replied. You tear it down and rebuild. But not with the same wood. Lisa said nothing. Daniel looked at her, then at me. Thank you, he said quietly, for telling me, for not letting me keep living in the lie. We stood. I adjusted my dress and walked out first, my heels clicking like punctuation marks on polished stone. No one followed. Sometimes silence is the loudest ending. I stepped out into the cool Seattle night, the soft hum of traffic blending with the clink of silverware behind me. Lumiere stood glowing behind tall glass panes, its perfect ambience now a stage where masks had fallen. I walked slowly across the street to the Celestia Hotel. Room 143 was waiting, already reserved, already paid for. The front desk greeted me with a professional smile. I nodded, said nothing. Once inside the room, I locked the door behind me, kicked off my heels, and stood by the large window overlooking the city. Downtown shimmered below, full of lights, noise, and people who had no idea a world had just ended 30 feet from their dinner tables. I didn't cry right away. I sat on the edge of the bed for what felt like hours, clutching a pillow, replaying every word, every glance from that evening. Not because I wanted to, but because the mind does what it wants when it's trying to survive. Then it happened. The tears came fast, hard, ugly. This wasn't graceful sadness. It was raw grief. For the 17 years I gave, for the birthday cards that meant nothing, for the anniversaries I planned alone, for the love I thought was real, for the woman I used to be before she had to be this strong. I cried for everything. And then there was a knock at the door. I froze. Slowly, I walked to the peephole and looked. Daniel. I opened the door a crack. He looked exhausted, still in the same shirt, eyes red but calm. I'm sorry to bother you, he said. I didn't know where else to go. I stepped aside. Come in. We sat in 2 armchairs by the window. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was shared space. 2 people breathing through the same pain. I still don't understand how you did it, he said finally. How you sat through dinner with that kind of knowledge. I gave a soft, dry laugh. I wasn't sitting. I was waiting. Some truths you have to deliver them yourself, or they lose their meaning. He nodded slowly, and for the first time all night, I felt seen not as the betrayed, but as someone who refused to stay silent when the truth needed a voice. We didn't speak for a while after that. Daniel and I just sat there both watching the moving lights outside, as if the city somehow made our silence easier to carry. 2 strangers bound not by fate, but by betrayal, not lovers, not friends, just witnesses to the same collapse. Eventually, he stood. I should go, he said. I don't think I'll sleep tonight, but I should still try. I walked him to the door. He paused, then looked back. Thank you, Emily, for handling it the way you did. For letting me find out with dignity. I nodded. You deserve to know. He hesitated again. What happens next? I don't know, I said truthfully. But I know what won't happen. And I won't shrink to make someone else feel taller ever again. He smiled faintly and left. I locked the door behind him and leaned against it for a moment, taking in the quiet. That night, I didn't make plans. I didn't make resolutions. I didn't vow to become someone new. I simply let myself be. Not Mark's wife, not the betrayed, just a woman in a hotel room with mascara on her pillow and nothing left to pretend. Sometimes closure doesn't come with a bow. Sometimes it comes with a silence so complete it finally makes room for your own voice again. And that's what I chose. I didn't text Mark. I didn't answer his calls the next day. When I returned home on Monday, his things were already packed. A quiet goodbye sealed in cardboard boxes and absence. I walked into my bedroom and opened the curtains wide. The light flooded in golden and warm. It didn't fix everything, but it reminded me that there's always another morning. To anyone listening, wondering if you're crazy for noticing the changes, the distance, the way they stop laughing at your jokes, trust yourself. You're not imagining in it. You're just not blind. And if this story gave you something strength, clarity, maybe even just a breath of courage, then share it. Someone else out there might need to know they're not alone, because we all deserve the truth. And more than that, we deserve peace.